Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Make Your Mark podcast. And oh my goodness, I have found a PR genius for you. Like, I'm telling you, she's absolutely amazing. She's based in the UK, and I've known her for a little while now. She's actually part of this mastermind group that I've been in. And let me tell you something. Not only is she great at PR, but she is a total party animal. And I've gone through her socials and found a few things out which we will be discussing in this episode later on. Okay, so make sure you stay tuned and stay to the end because we will be dropping golden nuggets throughout. Oh my goodness, Carol, I am super excited to have you here today.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited as well.
Definitely. I mean, you've helped so many people when it comes to PR, right? You've even worked with Lisa Johnson, right? And several other famous people. I'm not going to give away too much right now, okay? But you have worked with famous celebrities. And so, before we get into the nitty-gritty of PR, because it's such an important subject when it comes to publicity, getting your brand out there, your name out there, I know it couldn't have been easy to start a PR company. And so I would love for you to share with our audience today a little bit about some of the twists and turns that you've taken as being part of this journey.
Okay, wow, fine. Let me start at the very beginnings, like therapy. So, one thing that I make clear is that even though, yes, I do PR for lots of different brands and clients,
Mhm.
I'm a journalist and I've been a journalist for 25 years. So, my career started out in local newspapers and I worked my way up to the nationals. So, originally, I was 27 and I was made the editor of a series of regional newspapers. And then I worked for the Daily Mail. I worked for a publication called the London Light, worked my way up. And then I worked for the Mail Online news desk. In between that, I went off and worked for different magazines, doing shifts, as well as being made editorial director of a group of magazines called TNT. And as well as then other things, I went back to Mail Online where I worked as the travel editor. It was an amazing time. It was a brilliant job. And I helped with my co-editor to raise that channel from 1 million hits a month to 1 million hits a day.
Wow.
They then promoted me to female editor. Now, the female channel on Mail Online is the third, I think, or it was the third biggest channel. So I had a huge team of amazing journalists, and we worked so hard producing up to 40 stories a day. And I really learned there what makes a good story, what makes a good headline, what people want to read. And what I also learned about was strategy in terms of if it's a really serious news day, how it was our responsibility to find the more light-hearted stories so that there was a great mix of those features on the website. Then I had my daughter, which I'm sure we'll come on to at some point, and I decided to leave Mail Online after about 4 or 5 years. So I then started as a freelance journalist.
Okay.
Initially, I set up a company called Make the Headlines, and that helps ordinary women share their stories in the media. I'm a trusted pair of hands, and I felt that there wasn't enough variety for women who had a good story to share. You know, the options out there in terms of who they could go to, who they could trust. So, myself and another journalist set up Make the Headlines, and we've helped hundreds of women share their stories in the media. That then took me on to entrepreneurs because I knew that if I could help women share their stories in the media, I could definitely help entrepreneurs to shout about their expertise, shout about their brands. And I use the same journalistic principles. So I use the principles of storytelling to draw out their expertise, to craft brilliant story ideas that I know will be of interest to editors as well. So I've been doing that for 6 years. And it's actually been brilliant. It's something I'm really passionate about doing. I love working with people. I love seeing the impact that national media coverage can have on them, can have on their brand, can have on awareness. So I'm still a journalist. I still write for national newspapers and magazines, and I help entrepreneurs get into the national press.
Oh my goodness. I love all of what you just said, and I've got so many more questions to ask you now, right? Now, first of all, like you said that you was a journalist. You started off as a journalist. And it's funny because I've always been told if you don't know what your stories are, or you can't find a story, because I know when people are starting out in business, you, you struggle with, okay, what am I about? What is my story? I've always been told, if you're struggling with that, go find a journalist. They can find a story in absolutely anything. Right? And so this is what you do, right? But you do this strategically and tactically, making sure that certain points or certain things are emphasized in a particular story. Is that right?
Yeah, so I will have, so let's say, for example, well, two hats. So journalist hat, I think after doing this for 25 years, it's kind of gut instinct. When I talk to somebody and they say, oh, this happened to me, or I've experienced that, it's almost like a bit of a headline jackpot. And I know that sounds really cheesy, but you think, yeah, that could definitely make a story. That could make a story. You know, all the elements add up and you think, yeah, that's got everything there. And it's similar when I talk to my PR clients. So it's up to me to ask the questions that I know will create stories that will be of interest to editors as well. But with my PR clients, there's always a longer term strategy. It's about where they want to position themselves, who they want to be seen as, and making sure all those elements align so that we create stepping stones, like a pathway of how to get there. And obviously with journalism and PR, you know, that can be fluid to a certain extent. You know, there are always new opportunities and it can change and maneuver. But so long as you've got the end goal in mind, then we can work towards getting towards that point together.
I love that. I love it. And it's very strategic because you seem to know what questions to ask, right? Which is a skill in itself. Like, not everyone does, right? And so I love that about you and the way you kind of dig in, and I remember this when I was in Vegas, right? Because you did the same thing with me then, right? And I was like, oh, okay, no one's asked me these questions before, right? And so clearly you've been doing it for such a long time. You know exactly what questions to ask to draw out the right information. So I love that. But I want to go take a couple of steps back a little bit because you said you started in this industry when you was 27, right?
Oh no, before that,
Woo.
no, I started when I was 21, but I was made editor of regional papers when I was about sort of 27.
Oh
So I
wow.
graduated, I did my degree in journalism, and straight after that, I got a job in a local newspaper.
Wow. Okay. So did you always know this is the path that you wanted to take?
No, I did
Ooh.
not. And I kissed a lot of frogs before then.
Okay. So that's I need to hear about that. So tell me what you were doing before you kind of
Oh
landed
my
big
gosh.
time.
Right. So I had my first job when I was 14. So alongside studying, um, I what did I do? I did all retail stuff. So I worked for a hairdresser. I worked for a clothing company. I did sales. So I was the
Wow.
person phoning you up asking if you wanted gym membership or knocking on your door. I did anything to
Wait,
kind of,
wait,
yeah,
you went knocking on people's
yeah,
door.
I did all of that.
Stop.
Yes.
No way.
I am not selling you anything when clearly we were there to sell something. But I did all that. And I tell you, I worked for a gym company. So this was during university. I was placed in different locations around the country, and we were there for a limited period of time. And it was like a launch. So you would launch a special offer, and I was one of the in-house salespeople. So I was showing people around. But what we had to learn was different techniques to sell to different types of people. So whether you were an audio thinker or whether you were a visual thinker, we had that training to be able to talk to that specific client. And that's what I really enjoyed. But I had all these jobs. And the problem was that I'm always, what's next? What's next? Right. I've done that. What's next? It has to interest me. It has to keep me passionate, interested. And none of that stuck with me. You know, I did it for a while. I earned good money. I was good at these things as well. But it was like, no, it's not right for me. And then I remember reading about a journalism course, and I'd always been good at English, always, you know, that was my strong point, loved writing, and I loved talking to people and finding out more about them. So I went and did my degree, and that's it. That's for the past, how old am I? For the past 25 plus years, I've been doing this, and it constantly keeps me focused, engaged, interested, because I'm always meeting and talking to brilliant people who have you know, either really personal stories that can be challenging sometimes as a journalist, because you're speaking to someone at their most raw, kind of, you know, vulnerable. And that's why it was important to me to start Make the Headlines, to show that these women could trust, you know, put their trust in a journalist when they were sharing something really personal to raise awareness about it.
Yeah.
So yeah, there were stepping stones to get there. And when I found this is what has just kept me interested for all these years.
Oh my goodness. Now, I know there's people watching this or listening to this episode and they're like, oh my goodness, I want to find something that I'm that passionate about. And so, at what point, what was that trigger when you were like, yes, this is me? Like, what was that moment?
Do you know what? It was just really early on. I think it was really early on when I went to a local newspaper, and then I was made editor after a while, and it just all consumed me. I was, you know, I was there late nights, I was there at the weekend, and that to me, you know, I didn't question it. I just wanted it to be the best that it could be. I wanted to pour everything in it. I recruited a brilliant team. Like it was, we were an independent paper, and it had those kind of, you know, those flags of making our mark, of doing something that we all really believed in. And I think that's what sort of stayed with me. And I've had, you know, waivers up and down when I've been in jobs and I'm like, no, actually I need to be doing something more than this now. But it's always been with journalism, because I mean, even, you know, stories that I've done recently and a story I might be working on soon, they're really important stories, and that resonates with me, and that ticks kind of an internal box for me in terms of that integrity. And that's what I love doing, and that's why I do what I do.
Wow, wow. Now, you have already mentioned a couple of times that you just work with women. Now, is there a reason why you chose just to work with women?
Good question. So actually, I don't just, so in my PR capacity, I don't just work with women. So I get bolted on also by PR agencies, and I work with them on their clients, whether they're startups or national brands. For me, when I started How to Make the Headlines, I specifically said it was female entrepreneurs, because I feel that's who I can really help the most in terms of teaching them how to do their own PR, teaching them how to share their stories in a way that feels right for them. Of course, I'm open to working with everybody and anybody, but in terms of, you know, who I could really work well with and get really good results for. I mean, you look at the newspapers, they've all got sections for women readers. You look at the magazines, there are you know, women's magazines, and it
Mm.
seems like there's much more opportunity in the media for female entrepreneurs or female stories. But of course, there's always room for more stories as well.
Yeah, now I want to touch on that a little bit more. Like, you found this out, right? Like, when I think about it, I'm like, yeah, there are more stuff about women and there's more sections for women. But why is that? Well, what's happened there?
Well, I think you'd probably have to go in, delve into the demographics and the psychology behind, you know, why newspapers were first started, and the fact, you know, perhaps women like to read about other people more than men. You know, we had the men's magazines, didn't we, in the 90s, and
Yeah.
a lot of those folded. So whether or not that's part of a female psyche to read about that, don't quote me on this, because I don't have the stats and figures. This is just, you know, me thinking off the top of my head, but potentially it's something along those lines. But obviously there is something, because there are female, you know, there's women-led sections, there's women magazines. So yeah, who knows?
Now, and you've done all of this, right? Whilst you've also been a mum, right? How have you been able to juggle being a mum and being this awesome journalist that works with PR companies that gets people all over, newspapers and magazines? Like, how have you been able to do that?
So Amelia is now 7 years old. So in the beginning, so I'm quite lucky because my husband runs his own business as well. So he runs a bike training school, teaching people how to learn how to ride motorbikes. So we were able to kind of share the childcare. So I would work Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. He would cover Thursday, Friday. And you just work early if you need to work early. You work during nap times, and you still make sure that you have that quality time with your child as well. So it's all about, it's all in the strategy, and it's all in the planning, and it's all making sure that, you know, all your clients are, you're delivering results, which is really important to me. But also my daughter is obviously my number one priority. She is why I went freelance in the first place, to make sure that I had that quality time with her. So yeah, sometimes it is a juggle. And you know, she had a day off sick a couple of weeks ago, and she was sitting in my office over there, and she's like, I'm so bored. And I'm like, there's nothing I can do about that, because I am working. So yeah, you know, it is swings and roundabouts, but it's life, isn't it? And I want her to see all elements of that. So
Definitely. Does she ever ask you, like, Mom, what are you doing? What are you talking about? Like, what is all this? Has she started asking those questions yet?
she does. And I do tell her, you know, I sort of sow the seed of what I do, and, you know, kid appropriate, of course. And I sort of show her, you know, my clients' stories have been featured here, there, and everywhere. And also, she's already had her first byline. So as well as this, I do travel writing, and I've been a travel writer for, again, 25 years. Started years ago, and I'm the former travel editor at Mail Online, so I still write for them. And the year before last, we all went for a family trip to Lapland. And so Amelia got to write a column saying what it was like to meet Father Christmas. So yeah, she's already had her first byline, age like
Oh
5
my
or 6 or
goodness.
however she was.
That is awesome. Oh, how do you feel about that? You know, the impact there. Did she realize what was going on?
No, not really. No, but she does. She sort of, you know, it's all kind of coming together for her, but it's sort of a little bit more outside her age range and world right now.
Oh, that is awesome. Now, I remember, right, I'm looking back at this because at the time when this happened to me, right, I was in my first newspaper article, right, and I was 10 years old, but I didn't know what the big deal was, right? I entered a competition, it was an art competition, and honestly, I'm going to tell you something, right, that I've never admitted to before, but I actually cheated on this art competition. I did, right? I thought that I was a really good artist, but really I wasn't, right? And I remember I had to create this art cover of a book, right? Using no words, just pictures, and it had to do with the environment. And literally, I went to the library and picked out all these different books that were about the environment and took each one, right? Literally traced a section of it and created this whole collage, right, of different books, put it together and submitted it. Do you know what? I won first place. Don't tell anyone that. Do not tell anyone, right? Like,
Brilliant.
I won first place and then went to meet the London mayor, had afternoon tea with him and biscuits. The press
Scandal.
there, I was in the newspapers, and I'm like, oh, what's happening here? Like, what's going on? My mom was with me, all of this, right? And a few weeks ago, I was clearing up and I found this
Brilliant.
article. And I was like, oh my goodness, right? And we're like talking about PR and all this kind of stuff right now. But back then I had no idea what any of that meant, you know? But I thought I'd drop that in there. Uh,
Brilliant.
but no, I mean the fact that she's what 5 or 6 and she's done the first one, she's not gonna realize it now. It's not until she's older she's gonna be like, holy crap, mom, you were a genius, right? For doing this. Like, that's all absolutely amazing. Now, there have been a few photos that I've come across on social media about you. Right now, you do like to party, right? And a lot of people that are watching this or listening to it, right, probably thinking, oh, you know what? Carol's a journalist. She's got to be prim and proper, right? Got to be prim and proper.
I'm not sure I know many prim and proper journalists.
Oh, really? Ah. And so when I found out that there's a whole different side of you, right, especially in Vegas, right? and we saw a different side of Carol. I was like, oh my God, there's more to Carol than just being a journalist, right? And in fact, when we was in Vegas, we had a session, right, with Lisa, where we individually went up. Do you remember this? When we individually went up, right? And when you went up, you had such a powerful aha moment, right? Because right, even during the mastermind, like you're doing so well in your business, you've been doing it for so many years, you know it inside out. But the fact is, there's still certain challenges that we all go through, right? As people and as business owners. And so there was a certain challenge that you were going through, and Lisa picked up on this. We all picked up on this, right? Do you want to share what that moment was?
You might need to lead me a bit further.
Right, this is where you went up on the chair, right? And you were talking about how you help all different clients. And where we all had a different perspective about you, and we were like, oh yeah, Carol probably like charges 50,000, 100,000, right? And you were like, wait, hold on a second, what? Why would you think that? Right? So you had a different perspective about yourself than what we all did about you,
Yeah,
right?
and I think so. Yeah, I know what you're referring to, which is now, I guess for me, because I don't work at a huge PR agency, and I've worked with huge PR agencies before, I know the fees that they command, and rightly so, because there's a lot involved. And for me, when I initially started what I do, which comes under the umbrella of Driver Media, which is my sort of PR services and how to make the headlines as well. I guess I am at that growth point, which loads of businesses will experience, which is, okay, I'm going from it being me and some freelancers to, really needing to take on staff, to really needing to have that support around me to be able to expand what I'm doing. Because otherwise you're always at capacity in terms of your trade, as Johnson would say, you're trading your money for time. And if I want to grow sort of beyond my own capacity, then I need to be able to bring people on. And that sort of came with, that whole she's expensive kind of tag that came with it afterwards, which was really good fun. And for me, it was a bit of a light bulb moment in terms of having it, I guess, having it reaffirmed in terms of other people seeing the value as well. And I think that was really interesting because this is my industry. I've been doing this for so many years. So it's really good to have that insight from people outside of the industry and what their value was attached to being featured in the national media. So yeah, it was a bit of an eye opener. And I love those kind of honest, frank discussions where we're all in the room and we're all going, I need help with this mindset or this or this. And everybody has something that is so valuable because either they've been there or they see it from an entirely different perspective. And so, I take on board all of those comments. You know what DI is like, Lisa Johnson's mastermind. It's incredible. There are brilliant women. And you just go, yeah, I will take on board everything that everybody's saying and make sure it's right for me. And then you start implementing it and start making those changes. Yeah.
Oh my goodness. Okay, so I mean, I loved meeting you. I love getting to know you, and I'm still learning more about you, right? But the social media posts that I've seen, oh my
Yes. Wow.
goodness, right? As I was scrolling, because I research all of my guests that come on, okay? And so I was checking out on social media and I was like, oh my God, it was a shocker moment. And this is where I saw you standing side by side by a few of the celebrities that we have all known to come and love and know, right? We know them, they're all over TV. They're not someone that's in, the sidelines that you don't really know. You only see them now and again. But you have a photo, a selfie, in fact, with Kim Kardashian. How did that happen?
So that's me teaching Kim how to take the perfect selfie.
I saw that and I'm like, wait, hold on, this is Kim Kardashian you're talking about. Are you
So
saying she didn't know how to do that? Because
that
she's better at
so
it now.
that's very tongue in cheek. Let me just add that's very tongue in cheek. So that was at the Cannes Lion Festival, which is a huge advertising media, like celebrity festival that happens every year. So I mean, that was a good 10 years ago now. And I was one of the journalists taken over there by Mail Online. Mail Online had hired an incredibly luxurious yacht to have celebrities on board, to have parties on board. And I was one of two journalists, and it was our job to interview the celebrities, get the stories from the Cannes Lion Festival, and make sure we were really on top of everything. So as part of that, Kim Kardashian was on board. I think it was the following year I met Kylie Jenner and
Wow.
another one of, right, you're going to have to edit this piece because I need to remember who that was. So as part, so yeah, that was Kim Kardashian, and I met her on board the yacht, and that was her showing us how she takes a selfie. And from that we got an article because she gave us tips and pointers. So the story was, Kim Kardashian, the queen of the selfie, tells
Great.
tells her top tips and things like that. So I think we got about 3 or 4 stories just from that one meeting with Kim. But
Wow.
as part of that, we also met and interviewed Sting, his wife Trudy.
I saw that.
We met Will I Am, Louise, Jamie Redknapp, like so many celebrities. It was brilliant.
Oh my goodness. Okay. Are you like now besties with all of them?
Well, I'd like to think they remember me as much as I remember them, but we'll see.
I love it. I love it. And so I really want to touch on how you really help your clients, right? Like, there's a lot of people out there that know about PR, heard about PR, but don't actually understand what it can do for their business. So, would you be able to give us some examples of some of the clients that you've worked with and how it's actually helped them progress in business?
Yeah, sure. And there are loads. I've seen firsthand the impact that national media can have on a business or on a person or on a brand or a campaign. So if you think as a business owner, you want as many potential clients or customers as possible, and you can, as part of the overall marketing package to raise your profile, media has to be in the mix because you're through one article you've got the impact to and the opportunity to reach thousands and thousands of people, and it would be very difficult to reach that amount without spending vast sums of money, and in such an organic, authentic way as well. So yeah, I've got lots of examples. One yesterday actually. So for my client Liv Conlon, who is a property stage and runs a property staging business, we did an article for Mail Online. That story was right up by the splash, so the top of the homepage, all day from 9 o'clock in the morning till I last checked at like 5 p.m. And it was up there. It's had 600 comments. It was one of the best read stories on the website. So for her, in terms of that visibility, you've got to remember other journalists read that website, TV producers read that website, podcast producers read the website. So for her, that's amazing. Now, I also worked with Money Mum, Gemma Bird. She's Money Mum on Instagram, and she helps mums and families live on a budget. She gives tips and advice and things like that.
Mhm.
When I first found her on Instagram a few years ago now, she had 70,000 Instagram followers, and I did her first double page spread story in the Sun. It was all about her backstory, how by the age of 40 she'd paid off her mortgage despite never earning more than 25 grand a year. So we did the backstory, went into the Sun, and I also got it into the Mirror as well. On the back of that one article, she got an agent, she got a 2-book deal, she got a column in Fabulous magazine. She is now a regular on TV screens, including on Lorraine and This Morning. And she is now up to, I think it's about 350 or 450,000 followers on Instagram. And so she has just gone from strength to strength to strength. A few years ago, I also worked with a duo called the Style Sisters. So they're lovely. They go into celebrity homes and declutter wardrobes, that
Right.
kind of thing. And so I did the first lot of national newspaper and magazine stories for them, how they worked with Amanda Holden and Rochelle Humes and celebrities like that. On the back of those stories, they got an agent, they got a book deal, they've been on This Morning so many times, and they've launched a range of products which is available in sort of high-end stores as well. So it
Wow.
just can catapult. Another of my clients, fashion stylist client, on the back of one article on Mail Online, she was interviewed to present a spin-off show to 10 years younger. So it can just open doors. It can open doors that you don't even realize exist. And also, not just that, but it, you know, if you're sharing your story with a journalist, the journalist is going to make sure you're who you say you are. That, you know, there's going to be checks. A journalist isn't going to feature just anybody and everybody.
Yeah.
And so that elevates your credibility, you know, to say that you've been seen in various publications. When a potential customer then goes to your website and sees that, that's going to check the boxes in their mind that you are trustworthy, you're who you say you are, and raise the chances of them wanting to work with you as well or buy your product.
Right. Oh my goodness. Like there's so much there, right? That anything can happen. You just don't know, but you got to be able to put yourself out there. That's what I'm hearing. And the second thing I'm hearing is basically, Carol, you just turn people famous. That's what you do. Right? Like all of a sudden, all these all the opportunity and they're everywhere, right? So that is great because almost like, oh, Carol is the magic wand that you need to have for your business, which is awesome. Now, I know in journalism and in PR, there is still very negative stigma, right? And I know a lot of people are thinking, but journalists and PR, they just write the story that they want. They twist it, they turn it to make sure that it's going to be something that people want to read. And it's got very negative kind of stigma around it. Now, how do you kind of get around that? You are very down to earth and you're a straight shooter, right? You're not one of those ones that kind of turn and twist things around in a negative way, right? But you're good at pulling out the stories. Like, what would you say to that person that feels like, oh, no, 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 they're going to twist my words around?
Yeah, and look, I'm not going to sit here and say there aren't people who have had things written about them that they wouldn't want
Mm.
written about them. And also it's a journalist's job to find the story and to convey that story in a way that their readers will understand and that it will resonate with their readers. They're the expert at doing that. In terms of, if you've got that mindset that you're worried about that, and that's one of the reasons I set up Make the Headlines, because I thought, there's so many women wanting to share their stories. I want to show that, hey, I'm human, I'm a journalist, and there are thousands of journalists who are human and, want to help people to share their stories. We all want a good story. And I wanted to show that I'm a safe pair of hands. And I offer things like a final read back of stories so that, ultimately I share predominantly case study led stories. So that's somebody's story. It might be, as I said earlier, it might be really personal. It might be really, it might put them in a really vulnerable position. So I would rather work with them to
Mm.
share that story in a way that works for the publication. Obviously, it still has to be a story, but that
Right.
the case study is also happy to go ahead with. And so if you are thinking, oh my gosh, I want to do this, but I've got sort of a mindset issue or I'm not sure where to start, I'd say kind of start by finding a trusted pair of hands. If you can work long term with a journalist or a PR who's got your best interest at heart and also can show you how you can make the headlines, then that's got to be sort of a win-win situation. But I'm not going, all the story ideas that I come up with my clients have to be good story ideas. They still have to be relevant to editors, and it still has to be the content that editors know their readers want to read. So it's never going to be a giant ad for your brand or your business. You know, that might be woven into the story. There still has to be value. It still has to be something of interest. And if that's your personal story or your expertise or your, you know, your clients, perhaps a case study led story, then it's all part of that general mix to kind of, you know, promote who you are and what you do.
Absolutely. Oh my goodness. Now, I know at this point people are thinking, how do I connect with Carol? Like, I need her for my business. And I know that you have got a little freebie for all our listeners today. Is that right?
I have, yes. So one of the questions, so I run a Facebook group called How to Make the Headlines with journalist Carol Driver.
It's amazing. I'm in it and you're on it every single day in the morning doing lives. I'm like, this is incredible. Like on the dot every day, same time, you're there. Like
I
it's
am,
incredible.
because I'm like, I've got all this information. I'm happy to share it with people. This is what you do. This is how you do it.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's the Facebook group, and if you go into that, so one of the questions that I'm always asked is how to pitch. How do I pitch? How do I make sure it's a pitch that resonates? So I just created a checklist. It's the ultimate checklist guide to pitching your story. And it will just show you the points to kind of go through to make sure that you come across to an editor that you're press ready, that you're media friendly, and that your idea is conveyed in a really kind of concise way as well. So that's on my Facebook group. And also I can send a link to that as well.
Oh, fantastic, guys. Remember, all the links will be in the show notes. So make sure you scroll down and grab those links and make sure you do reach out to Carol because she's going to give you a whole different insight to what PR and journalists is all about. And also, the most important, how to do it the right way, right? Because there's so many people out there that's doing it the wrong way. We don't want to get caught up in that. Connect with Carol and make sure you learn PR, you learn how to do it the right way, and even better still, just get her to do it for you. Oh my goodness, Carol, it was so amazing to have you here on the show.
Thank you so much. I've really enjoyed it. Really good questions. I've loved chatting to you.
You too. So many golden nuggets in such a short amount of time. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to Make Your Mark podcast at www.makeyourmarkpodcast.com. Make sure you hit that subscribe button so you get this and every other episode that comes out. We have lots of great stuff coming, so make sure you hit subscribe so you don't miss it. And thank you in advance for all the reviews and comments. I appreciate it so much, and I look forward to serving you in next week's episode.